Hey, today let's talk about Franklin's, The Ways a Great Empire May Be Reduced to a Small One. That title is so long. Anyway, let's talk about it. Okay, so when you're reading this one, I love this one because it's a list. I think I've said this before, I love a list. So I like that, number one. But I want to talk about kind of what's going on here because if you don't really understand the premise of what's happening, then this whole thing falls to pieces. So, it's meant to be read as a satire. Okay, and you might be saying to yourself, well, what's a satire? I found a definition for you. And so, what it is, it is the use of irony, sarcasm, ridicule, or the like in exposing or denouncing or deriding vice or folly. Okay? I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, that's that, but how can we figure this out? And I was thinking, okay, who have they heard of that really does a lot of satire? And who came to mind? But Stephen Colbert of the Colbert Report. Maybe you should watch it, it's hilarious. But basically what this guy does is he takes the position of a right-wing conservative, okay? But really, he's not doing it because he is a right-wing conservative. He does it to make fun of right-wing conservatives. And so if you read that piece, you could kind of, and put Franklin kind of in there, you can see a little bit more of what's going on. Okay, so most of the time they are political. Just throwing that out there too. Okay, so now we have to think about, okay, we have to put ourselves in context. This is Ben Franklin, right? We know he was American and he was on the side of the colonists during the American Revolutionary War. Okay, so when we get that kind of figured out, then we'll know where to go from there. Okay, so basically, now that we have everything kind of the groundwork set, we can talk about this. And I think once you have that groundwork set, this is really easy and it all falls into place. But we'll talk about a few that are a little bit more confusing. Okay, so the first thing though I want to look at is this title, Rules by Which a Great Empire May Be Reduced to a Small One. Okay, so even in the title, he's being a little bit snarky because he's writing this to the British, and he's like, hey, if you keep doing these things, your empire will be reduced. And basically what he's saying by your empire being reduced is that you will lose the American colonies because they will revolt. So keep it up and you'll lose it. Okay, but he's doing it in a way that's sarcastic, so he's placing himself kind of siding with the British to help make fun of them. Okay, so I just want to look at a few ideas here. This is not going to be a super long lecture like some of my other ones, but just a few ideas. I think if you look at especially the first part where he talks about taxation, he talks about taxation in a bunch of different ways. We've always heard the Revolutionary War was taxation without representation, obviously that one, overtaxation, misappropriation of tax fund, and also corrupt tax collectors. And you'll see all of these in different sections in here. So he talks a lot about taxes, but we knew that already, and we knew he probably would. Also, he talks a lot about leaders. He talks about leaders, how they should be corrupt, how judges should be corrupt, and if there is a good leader, we should arrest them and lock them away. And if there is a bad leader, we should reward them, and basically, by the time the people are mad enough at you, move them back to England and pay them a whole lot of money, give them a pension. So, a lot of corruption there. Okay, now a few that I think are the most important and the most confusing, and I'll go there. Number 14 on page 469. Okay, so I'm going to go to that one. And one of the things with number 14 that my students always have trouble with, they're like, I don't understand what's happening here. And basically, he talks about if you have a leader that's elected and he actually is a good leader, what the government should do is dissolve the district. Okay, so now he doesn't have a district to rule. And so basically he's talking about redistricting. Redistricting to the point that this guy no longer has a space to rule. And that's how you get rid of him. But I like this one because I feel like it's really modern too, because I think we've dealt with this a lot in our last few elections. Like North Carolina especially is one of the most redistricted states in the country. So fascinating that some of these things are so modern still. Okay, so number 17, and this one talks about rival nations, and basically he says, don't worry about rival nations because the colonists are not working with rival nations. And even if they are talking to rival nations, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but basically what was happening here was that he said, don't worry about this nation that could get with the colonists to overturn you. if we know anything about our American history, we know that there was a country that worked with the colonists, and actually without this country, the colonists wouldn't have won. Y'all remember what this country was? France. So basically, here he's saying, don't worry about France. But again, I've read these things 1,000 times, so that's why I know them so well. And then on page 15, I just like this one. I don't think it's necessarily as hard as the other two. Excuse me, on page 469, number 15, he talks about turning the Navy men into pimping tide waiters, and I love this terminology. But basically, he says, take these men in their proud role as military men and turn them into bullies, and basically kind of use them for your own gains in more cheap ways. And so basically, he cheapens the role of the military and, for lack of a better word, pimps them out. So there's that one. Now, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was going to send an email, but then I was like, maybe they'll watch this. One thing that I think would be great, if you had any questions about specific numbers, I would love, love, love for you to put it in the discussion forum, because I think that would be an easier way to kind of go through and figure it out. Okay, so watch this, and I think that's all for now. Oh, one thing I want you to remember, though, sarcasm, satire, right? So these are the things that people would do to make a great nation a small one. That great nation, England, small one. And hilariously, we do know that it was made into a much smaller place when the American Revolution did happen. Okay? All right, well, if you have any questions, always come by my office or send me an email. See you later. Bye.